Listen, so Taylor's been cleaning up that box office like it's the swifter way to dust, and she's pretty much changed the way Hollywood works. And what's crazy is that Taylor has been in theaters before. They just, ended up being catastrophes or box office bombs that should have been hits. But now she got smarter and got harder in the nick of time and took advantage of the fall movie season that was about to be a complete drought and recorded a film for her concert that was obviously way too expensive for most to put on the Capital One.
What's in your wallet?
Not Eras tickets. She ended up charging $19.89 because of her album's title, which is a lot more affordable for people, and yet she still had the AMC app glitching like Ticketmaster. So after beating out Marvel movies and ticket sales like the very first night, she then did these Sunday live streams where the NFL was doing the vlogging for her. There was such a big demand for the movie that Swifties truly believe she created Thursday night showings, and she left the studios wondering what they could have, should have, or would have done. Personally, I'm just surprised at the star power that's behind her, because never in a million years would I have thought that out of everybody, Flavor Flav would be her number one fan.
I love me some Taylor Swift, man. Always did, you know what I'm saying? Word up.
This man was really out there exchanging friendship bracelets with Mr. and Mrs. Swift. But the biggest team up was easily with Beyonce, who pulled up with her at the premiere like they were the Pop Avengers, in a movie that even came with its own after credits, and now has the movie studio scared that it's their endgame because everything has changed. Let me explain.
It's going to be called the Eras Tour. See you there.
So the movie's a pretty straightforward recording of the concert when she performed it at SoFi Stadium, and it really is the only concert where you don't want to sit front row for. But it turns out no one was planning to sit for it at all. This is damn near the longest set list for a 3-hour concert that in real life kept her going till midnights. It's meant to be broken down into 10 acts that spans her entire career, where we see her in her yeehaw era, which is my personal favorite, then switching from pop to folk, pretty much getting ahead of whatever the upcoming culture shift was going to be at that time, making her a lot like Drake, but, she actually writes her songs. What is crazy, though, is that Wildest Dreams and Cardigan were some of the songs that were cut out, and that makes no sense for a fall movie release of all seasons.
What?
Now, I know people are split on whether audiences should be getting up for this one or not, but I think it's a little different than a feature film. It's not a drama, it's a concert movie. I don't need to be strapped in for a sing-along. You want people dancing like it's RRR. Just as long as people are cleaning up after themselves, then I personally think it's more than okay, or else you're going to have the AMC employees hating Swifties more than Taylor hates Evermore. It's also directed by Sam Wrench, who did the BTS doc and the Mumford and Billy concert films, and he even made a McDonald's ad where the picture of a Big Mac is supposed to be so enticing that you don't notice the people getting swapped out.
And her beautiful face in there, and
just a little bit of the background as well, so it kind of gets nice.
Now look what they made him do. It ends up becoming the difference between being at the game to watching the sports broadcast, because for the movie, Sam's directing what you're looking at, but when you're live, you decide what part of the performance you stare at. Or what bodyguard or dancer, as a lot of people were doing. But the overall production is great. This woman has more outfits than my cartoon self has had in a decade. She came out looking like Hocus Pocus, had the piano decked out like it's from 100 Acre Woods, and the tour itself already had this insane production design where they were giving out LED lights that the Swifties would wear as wristbands, and then they used these radars that would point at sections of the crowd to have them go off and light up in whatever color, shape, or movement they wanted, pretty much making the fans the production design. And just the idea that they would deconstruct the first half of the set and start moving it to the next city while she was still performing the last hour and a half is insanity. Like, it's well worth the bonuses she was giving the crew. Off of a tour that made $2 billion, $4 billion. I mean, this thing's still going. So here's how she bamboozled the movie heads. Pretty much, instead of hiring the middleman studio who brings in a team to record the concert film and then makes a deal with the theaters, she just made the deal with the theaters herself. She got a crew to shoot this for about $20 million at SoFi, which easily paid off, and then called up AMC, who's now credited as being not just a cinema, but a production company, which led to her getting the best deal she's gotten in her Swift CU. Before opening weekend even, the theaters had already run out of the collectibles and merch that they were giving out, to the point that people were really out there scalping buckets. Buckets? I didn't realize that her dad was a previous stockbroker, and now he's her financial advisor, because this was actually the dude who was behind the scenes. He was the man who hand-delivered the deal, because studios and theaters have had a lot of bad beef. They had a law where Disney or Universal, any studio out there, couldn't own a cinema, but that deal ended in 2020, meaning that AMC, as a theater, can release a movie, but also Warner Brothers, Sony, Disney, if they wanted to make a Mickey Mouse theater, they could. They just all chose to make digital ones in your house with their streaming services. Because that way, whether you leave or not, whether you stream or not, they're getting a monthly subscription from you. And we already know what Taylor thinks of some streaming. So when she pitched the Eras Tour to studios, they underestimated her and thought that denying her or giving her a bad deal would mean that they would have control of her release, like she wouldn't be able to do anything. So when she made a deal cutting them behind the scenes and all of them finding out the same morning we all did, not only did she break records and embarrass them in pre-sales, but she had them scrambling all of their movie release dates because they were scared to compete with her movie. They ended up moving The Exorcist, which already spent millions of dollars marketing their spooky Friday the 13th date, and Taylor won it just because 13's her favorite number? And it's crazy because Universal was one half of Barbenheimer, and after all that success, they just let Exorcist die in peace? It's terrible. Killers of the Flower Moon was another one that was supposed to get 2 weeks in theaters before going to Apple, and they cut it to only 1 week because they were scared of Taylor's third week sales. Third week. She damn near is going to be in that movie anyway because those walls are so thin, I'm probably going to be hearing why you got to be so mean during the shootouts. And it's also crazy to think that she says more F words in this movie than in that one, but somehow still got a PG-13 rating?
I'm like 8'4" blonde hair to the still a I'm so gangster, you can me baking cookies at night. You out clubbing, but I just made
For theaters, this was their revenge since they were left out in the dust during COVID. Recently the studios even moved big movies like Dune and a bunch of other ones because they don't want to pay their actors the 2% they're asking for. And if you remember, they were left out to die because these studios were skipping them and creating their streaming services. So now the theaters skip them since there's obviously bad blood.
All right, what advice would you give to anyone who wants to become a singer?
Get a good lawyer.
Obviously, very few can make a deal directly with the theater because that's some Don material right there. But it is going to be interesting to see how this opens up for other movies, and especially genre movies, because there's been stuff in horror like Terrifier that was able to do some really impressive runs independently in theaters. You also mostly see it with religious movies where they get their whole church to flock and congregate in the theater. And I guess when you really look at it, Taylor did have people crying, laughing, damn near turned into a revival in some theaters. So while the studios weren't ready for it, that's karma. And what's better than revenge than causing a gold rush they're not a part of? So if I was a studio, man, I'd write a check and leave a blank space. Even with the Super Bowl. At this point, she'd be the main event and the game would be the halftime cutaway. Long story short, she's a mastermind.
I feel like I know that everybody has busy lives, so I do feel the need to explain what I'm doing because it's not normal.
Yeah.
Now, what's interesting is that a lot of future filmmakers are more interested in premiering on Netflix than in theaters because that's where it's going to live on. Because when you ask most people, and I always see it in the comments, they want to know when a movie's coming to streaming. That's where people watch stuff the most. And legit, my financial advice would be you should start a site and just post when does Blink come out on Netflix. And I can guarantee you ain't even got to put a date on the article. You will get so many clicks that by next year you'll be able to afford tickets to the Eras Tour 2.
The economies are booming in every single city where Taylor is kind of touching.
So having these releases feel like events is important to theaters because it's what's getting butts in seats. People want to dress up like Gentleminions. Barbenheimers. Hell, there's a lot of people who think Top Gun Mavericks will beat COVID. Plus, she's only playing it on weekends to make it more like an event, and also so you can't watch it on $5 Tuesdays because, capitalism. Taylor's version.
If you were not a singer, what would you be doing?
Might be in advertising. Maybe coming up with slogans and concepts is the same as hooks and songs.
She's also looking to direct with a bunch of music videos already under her belt, and even that All Too Well short that got a full film festival run and almost led to an Oscar campaign. So that deal that she signed for her first feature film is going to be a really fun one to follow. As for the studios, the biggest worry is that this route that she took for Eras is going to cause a pattern. And it's caused a pattern.
Karma's real.
Did they really think they'd be bigger than the biggest artists in the internet age? They really didn't realize that you can't gatekeep when you're no longer the one with the gate anymore? So call it what you want, but Eras really has changed the way movie theaters will move going forward. As for the rest of 2023, Taylor really said, Beyonce, I'm gonna let you finish. But the Swifties had the best concert film of the year.